What's up, everybody? It's Herschel from High School Top 200. Welcome back again for another Monday morning meeting. Like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff on my YouTube, and also go to my Facebook page, IG page, and just catch up with all the other stuff that I post on there, and also the website hstop200.com. Things are still getting fixed, as there's still some residue of bloody confusion on that website, and I know it's taken a while, but the guy's just getting through it. And I thank Abdullah a lot for helping me out on that, and so hopefully you can get it all done so that everyone can jump in on the content and to see all the stuff that I have posted up, because there is a lot of stuff around happening around New Zealand rugby in first 15 level. And with the amount of talent that we have, which is always too much, I think people don't know or fail to realize and see how much talent we have and how much talent at the same time gets wasted. That's why I have a platform like this, so that everybody can get some recognition and shine, and hopefully get some opportunities to go and play overseas, or to go and play NRL, or to get picked up that way as well, so that everyone has everyone can fulfill some kind of goals that they have, that they set and work hard to get to. So that's what all of this is for, and that's what I do this. It's always players come first. It's always about the kids' dreams, and hoping to help them get to some kind of opportunities, so that they can, fulfill their dreams and tick off another goal in that box. It just opens up a lot of different opportunities for them, even for later on in their life. And playing professional rugby is kind of what it's all about for a lot of these boys, and a lot of these boys trying to help out their mums and dads, and the situations that they're in. And so it's been a pretty busy week in terms of attending games, as I went to a game on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and then 3 on Saturday. And then I've been watching games pretty much all night on Saturday night when I got back, and then on Sunday as well. I was watching games all day just to catch up and try and get through everyone's games for my team of the week, and making sure I am sort of well versed on what's happening around the country, and seeing all the different kind of players getting into it as well. Because we're into our fifth or sixth game of the season for most competitions, and so a lot of guys are actually getting into their strides right now. And seeing how much they've grown, and how much I guess they've picked up in the season from their preseason, and then are just in full strides. And so to me, finding guys like that are at that peak, and that are part of the top 200 rankings or the top 100 rankings, goes a long way. And so I like to see them in those positions. And so watching as much games as I can, really trying to find and pinpoint some of those guys, some of those players, finding new players, finding out, new information on players, things like that. And so it's really cool that I get to watch a bunch of games. It takes a lot of time, but I love it. I love doing this stuff, and so I don't really mind, putting in that effort to get all that kind of stuff down. I do the thing with my wife and my kids, and give them some daddy and family time, and then I spend a lot of my time, doing this rugby stuff, and trying to find and look for opportunities for everybody else as well. So that's what we're going into. So, talking about those opportunities, and talking about just trying to give everyone a fair shot and shine, I guess, on a national page, which this is. This is a national website. It's not based on just one place in the country. It's based on everywhere on the everyone and every competition around the country. So, I mean, people ask me why when I saw Otorohanga and Inglewood play. Obviously, I'm not going to try and find the best player in the country there. I'm not trying to find, the next best thing or anything like that. I purely just went to see a good game of rugby at first 15 level, and that's pretty much what I got. I always sort of see and look for guys that, especially with these smaller schools, which guys can hang with sort of a higher grade of team. And there were a few guys on both sides, really. Like, there's a few guys on the Otorohanga team that I think, that could probably play in the CNI or, fill in some of those gaps. And, I see some of the players there and I think, oh, yeah, they'll go good on this team or this team. And, they can fill a gap here and that, what talent they use on this side. I feel like they can transition that into like a Super 8 or 1A or to a CNI or, Wellington comp. And so I kind of look for that kind of stuff as well. These two teams were pretty evenly matched throughout the whole game. I felt that Inglewood played with a lot more structure and with a lot more of a game plan, and Otorohanga probably pretty much just freestyled the whole thing and read what they saw in front of them and just kind of, I guess they just tried to create some kind of mismatch and, just ran hard at the line and then things opened up and then they sort of played off that. And so it kind of worked. I mean, there were a few tries like the number 12 for Otorohanga. Like, this is the other thing is that I don't have their roster, so I can't really name them, but I really like the number 12 who was like really aggressive and really solid on defense, made some pretty good runs as well. He was good. The 10 and the 9 were really good for Otorohanga, and the big redhead lock fellow as well for Otorohanga was really good too, who I really liked. And then there was the 2 and the 3 and the number 8 for Inglewood High School that I thought were great. Good, solid rugby players as well, and pretty much the best ones on the field in that game. Obviously, the quality level of it wasn't as high, but it was still a really good game to watch, and it was still really exciting and kept it close. And even right to the end of the game, where Otorohanga was really trying to attack and try and open something out wide, and it was just good shutdown defense by Inglewood and just put the pressure on, and they came out the winners. But yeah, that was a good game to go and watch and see, and just different kind of teams to seek out and to sort of learn about more. And I mean, like, if you're from Hamilton or Waikato area, Otorohanga Rugby Club is a really good club here. Always kind of linger around that top 4, winning the competition. I think they were in the finals last year, playing Hotapu, and lost to Hotapu in the finals. And so they're a really well-respected club here. I'm not too sure if they feed a lot from the Otorohanga High School or college or Tikawiri High School or anything like that, but I know they do have some locals in there, but I mean, I guess that they get a lot of players from Hamilton. I'm not really too sure. I haven't done my homework on that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't really know, but it was a good game. On Wednesday, I went and saw St. Peter's and St. Bede's College play, which I think is one of the best traditionals you can have. Two teams who are way far away from each other, right out of each other's schedules, and they bring sort of the 1A and the Miles Toyota Cup or Championship together, and sort of gives me a better idea of how I look at these two competitions and teams when it comes to rankings and stuff. So I sort of took this game as well as the game that I went and saw earlier this year when King's College hosted Christchurch Boys, and so kind of trying to find sort of a medium between those two games and those 4 teams, and then sort of seeing, well, this matches up right with their wins and losses. This matches up right with the wins and losses, things like that. So, you know, it was a really good. It's a really good matchup to have, and you know, I was so happy that I got to go and see it. I was happy that, you know, the way that the game turned out in terms of St. Peter's showing that they're the stronger team. Also, at the same time, as showing like what they are more of about, I think, because I've said this before as well. I don't kind of agree with how St. Peter's is playing right now, because I don't feel like AJ is able to play as free as he wants to, and he's been more restricted to becoming a game manager rather than sort of playing off his instinct and flair and his ability to react to what's playing out in front of him. And so in this game, though, he actually played that way, where he was pretty free on the way that he played, and he took the line on a lot more. The other thing is that St. Bede's didn't come with the strongest team possible, because I wanted to see Mason Allison and AJ Faleafanga go head to head at first five, and Mason obviously couldn't make it, so you weren't able to have that matchup, but it was still a good matchup there. At first five. I think Jermaine is a bit too young right now. I think that's his name. Yes, Jermaine. I think he's a bit too young right now, but he did hold himself quite a bit. Like, I wasn't like disappointed with what he did at all. He did what he could, and I guess because that forward pack was just way too strong. St. Peter's forward pack was just too big, too strong. As much as St. Bede's tried, they just couldn't match up in the forwards well enough, and they couldn't match up with that size and strength, and that constant size and strength pounding at it. And there was like a few sequences in the game where like St. Peter's must have went at least 11 to 12 or 13 kind of phases. They would just pick just sort of one-off runners, and they just couldn't hit them hard enough and drive them back. You know, St. Peter's was just eating up meters with every single run, and they ended up scoring off it in their first try. And that wasn't even the first time they did it. It was just like there was just big moments of the game where St. Peter's forwards just took over, and they just couldn't handle it after a while. Tanner Stowers-Smith was a standout at number 8 for St. Bede's, and it was just everything that he did was just turning into an opportunity for St. Bede's to really work off that platform. And I give it up to him for playing that full 70 minutes the way that he sort of started it, and it was just full in your face, physical running, physical hits, things like that too. But I mean, even with Conrad and Sika and Nick Muli, who had a really good game too at hooker for St. Peter's, it was just too much. They were just too much for St. Bede's, and they couldn't really get anything going. And so even Ben couldn't have a good game either. Donovan at halfback for St. Bede's, and I guess it's the same with every team, is that your halfback can only do so much, and your backhand can only do so much. But if forwards aren't really fronting up well, then it's kind of a waste. It's kind of a you're just stuck. You're just stuck like that, and that's exactly what St. Bede's backline was like. Is that they were just stuck. I mean, even Shadrock couldn't get much going at centre as well, even though I wanted to see what he was like. Abbey as well, as much as he got the ball a few times, he made a few runs for St. Bede's, but they just couldn't do anything. And so I give it up to St. Peter's in the way they played it, because they just did their thing. But it was like, it wasn't only just in that game too, like on Wednesday as well, St. Pat's Silverstream did the same thing to Rongotai, where those forward pack would just move too fast. It was just too, they were just too big and strong. And Silverstream weren't even playing their main forwards. There was like a few main forwards that were out, like Sam Morgan was out, Calvin Fepuliati was also out. Was there two others that were out as well? But, you know, just the momentum that they built against Rongotai, and it was a slow kind of start, but once they got it started, they were just, you know, they were just going all day. And then when you have someone like Emmanuel Solomona, who's been playing so well at second five, even for such a big dude, like the way that he plays is so smart. You know, he makes everything work. He's always trying to create, and he just seems to make smart decisions, and it just seems to work out right. But that was kind of like the same scenario where Silverstream just, you know, I guess set the platform straight away for what they really wanted to do and what they wanted to accomplish, went out and did it, and then, you know, it was just only a matter of time before they started to break Rongotai down, and then, you know, their points started coming in. Another interesting game, I think, was that Hamilton Boys one. Now, for me, when I watched it, Hamilton Boys on that left edge, on that left side of the field, they missed 3 tries that if the ball just went into hand, there was space and time enough and speed enough on that corner, on the edge, for them to just run and score a try. And 3 times they dropped it, and it wasn't even like the pressure from Rotorua was getting to them. It was just misplaced passing. You know, targets were off, overrunning, underrunning the ball, and, you know, 3 times when it went, you know, went to the last set of hands, and it was always the last set of hands. It went through everything else right, just the last set of hands, then dropped. There was, you know, just a try given up, and so they only ended up with 1 try in that first half. And you know, Rotorua Boys struggled for that first half to really do anything. The lineouts and stuff just weren't working. It was just so bad to watch. More so on Rotorua's side, because I think where they started messing up their lineouts, it was more on a good. They were in a good position to have some kind of attack, and it only just started working right towards the end. And so, like, right before the end of the half, so there were 3 tries that were scored by Rotorua Boys. They were all scored in the same way, in the same sequence, which was a line out, a maul, and then they drove it to the line and scored a try. And they scored 3 tries, 1 before halftime, 1 straight after halftime, and then 1 later on, I think about 50 minutes into the second half. And that's exactly how they scored every single one of their tries. And it sort of answers, like, asks a few questions of the Hamilton Boys, is that, like, they were so terrible in trying to get back and to defend it. They weren't trying to break it open. They weren't trying to, you know, stack or pinpoint a place where they could just, you know, I guess, nail in the back of Rotorua Boys and then stop that momentum. Rotorua Boys 3 times just drove right through them, and Hamilton Boys just had no answer for it. And obviously that's probably something that Greg and Nigel will go over with the boys, and Logan will be there, you know, them just figuring out how to help these boys in those situations. And I think if Rotorua Boys if they had worked out their lineouts at the time, I think that would have been a different score. And obviously the other thing, if you watch the game, right, Taha is obviously the other guy that just tears it up. Taha was just too good, and he was just breaking tackles left and right, just footwork and kicks, and, you know, just getting everyone involved, and he was just too much to handle, I think. And it was such a good game that he played too, and he was just unreal. He was just unreal. Obviously, Peyton Spencer wasn't there, which took a lot of that attack from fullback away. I guess that other option, the other dangerous guy and X-Factor guy on the field taken away, you know, it just, you lose a lot when he's gone. So they got to try and figure something out if he's out again for another week. But they survived that one, Hamilton boys. They survived that one. They even could have won. Rotorua boys could have won even after that. They scored after Hamilton boys scored their last try to take the lead. Rotorua boys got a penalty, not even that far out, and they ended up missing. My thing with this though is that they had Kers take. I know Kers van der Heerden is their kicker, but for me, I would have went to Tome and said, well, I'll make the older guy kick it. The one that's, more experienced and he's got more, more nerves. He's got a lot more control, and I thought that he should have kicked it. I would have put the responsibility on him to make that kick and to win the game, and then let Kers sort of see how it's done first in such a big game. And taking all the glory and that kind of stuff, that's cool and that's fine, but I would do what's best, I guess, for the team. If they wanted, Kers to sort of look at it as a learning moment and a teachable moment for him to sort of see how it feels, and Rotorua could probably still make the finals, I guess, because they've only lost once. I think they've only lost once, and so they'll be fine as long as Hastings loses, because that's the other team that they'll probably be, scratching for as well. Even though they're playing so good, but I would have went to Tome Punos and made him kick it and give him all the pressure and give him all the all the heat and just to try and save that game. St. Peter's doubled up on the week and played Aodere, won 52-0, which is really surprising. Not that they beat Aodere but that it was a high score. Like, St. Peter's is not really a team that scores 50 points, even against easier teams. For some reason, they just don't get it done that way, and they're just not built that way to do that stuff. But I'm so glad that they scored 52 points against Aodere. Kings and Grammar was, in all honesty, it was a pretty boring game. It really was. So many mistakes. It just wasn't a good reflection of what Kings was, or what Kings is, and then it wasn't really a good reflection as a whole in what I guess New Zealand rugby is about. And I understand the standard of it and all that kind of stuff, and the moment and the occasion of being, a real big tradition for these two schools, but at the same time, like, I've watched others over the years. Even last year was really good. 2 years ago, they had a real good blind. Like, there's been other good games. This game was just, I just thought was just really bad. I just didn't. The mistakes that they were making were just not mistakes they usually make. There was no flow to the game. The structure seemed to fall on both sides. There was sort of like a lack of urgency for most part of the game, and I would have picked Kings if I put something on it. I would have picked Kings. I definitely would have been wrong this week, but that's just how it goes. That's just how even with the rankings and stuff like that, you still have to take the field and play the game. It's not what it's about, but it's about, with rankings, is being consistent and showing your consistency throughout the whole year and fulfilling your whole schedule. So, it really is up to schools just to go out and do their thing that they do, week in, week out. Hastings had a massive game against Gisborne boys. Gisborne boys held out for a while. It took like 20 minutes or so for them to for Hastings to even start really making some consistent breaks within the line and getting the sort of defense to shift around a little bit, and then only it was like after 20 minutes they scored their first try. But Gisborne boys, they just need to hold on a lot longer. It just seems to be like once there is a break, heads do fall a bit, and confidence goes out the window and all that kind of stuff. But they have a good team there. They have a really good team there as well. I just wasn't expecting, 65 points, especially with the slow first half. But then Alex Dickey played a really mean game. Cooper Flanders played really good. Miffy Tupou was good. A1. Lolofi was really, really good, and he's getting better every single game I see him. He's just playing so well. But that was another good game. Same thing with the Cambridge one. Cambridge against Fielding, 38-10. And then St. Paul's Collegiate, 36-10 over Wesley College. That's the other one. St. Bede's had a really good win as well. Palmy boys just in that, that real messy game on Wednesday as well. It's just one of those things, just really messy. And New Plymouth boys scored, kicked their first penalty within the first 30 seconds, or like a minute 30 seconds, something like that, and then that was all they conjured up for the whole game. And there was it was bad weather, but I thought that they lacked some attacking flair that I'm sort of used to seeing. I'm used to seeing out of what New Plymouth is doing this year, and they fell off a little bit in that game. I'm not too sure why, and I'm just kind of thinking about it. I was thinking about it the other day. What was missing? Shay just wasn't having a very good day either. Peter as well. Front rows were missing. What's his name wasn't there either. From the front row, Mitchell. But then maybe Torpia Barrowfield, because he wasn't there. Maybe just things like that, but they just weren't the same. It just didn't look the same either. Samuel Vakadula was also missing out quite a bit and wasn't given the ball, wasn't given opportunity. So yeah, I know, what can you do, eh? It was a pretty frustrating game to watch, just because I knew they could do better. That wasn't their finest performance, even close at all. But yeah, that's going to be one of those as well, because a lot of these games are going to change the face of what the top 25 looks like right now. Definitely that Kings losing to Graham is going to be a big change. New Plymouth and Palmy boys is going to be somewhat of a change. Napier drawing with Tauranga. Tauranga did really good right at the end to come back and score right in the last movement and draw that game up. But besides the low scoring, it was actually a really good game to watch. That Tauranga Boys College and Napier boys. It was such a it wasn't boring. This was such a good game that even without the scoring, it was always on edge. Forward packs matched up really well. Good battle between Toby Taylor and Gus Brown, the two props. There was that matchup. Gala Malasia played really good. I thought he had a solid game. Even Bethel out in the centres, Malasia, he was really sharp. Nick Eno played really good. I liked the way that he was. Taikiaki Broughton is actually getting back to it. What's his name? The hooker for Tauranga. Well, sorry, bro. It's just basically my mind, but he had a really good game too. I thought he was really good. What's his name? Palmer. The other lock, the big white boy. He's just so strong. He's so strong and so physical, and I love the way he plays too. He's really hard to move. And I think, his mobility is probably going to be what holds him back, his mobility and his weight. But he can take care of that over the summer, starting this year and over the summer. I think he can get it done and be a really one of the top locks coming back next year, because he's only year 12, so he'll be back next year, of course. And I thought he did great too, and that game was just really entertaining. It really was. It really was. Good scrums, good contests, solid forward packs. Tauranga boys were actually really attacking for like 20 minutes in that second half, and flipping Napier boys were just eating it on defense, man. There was so many. I think there was like 3 held ups in that 20 minutes of just bashing, and most of it was just done in the red zone, and so they were taking this heat, and Tauranga was throwing everything at them, and they just got out of it. Napier just held strong, just got out of it, and it was just a good show by both sides, But that tie game is also going to lead into how I rank some of the other teams as well, because Tauranga boys being outside of that top 25, their loss to Westlake boys wasn't a good look either, and not having won a game so far, even though all of them are close by just a few points, and then they've got this draw. It just makes things difficult, and sort of not second guessing, but just puts that into there's like a minimum, like a real minimum space, little spaces between all the different rankings and all the teams, and so it's just going to be a hard one to call. And you'll see the rankings out tonight. St. Kennigan's losing to Dilworth is probably one of the biggest upsets of the weekend. I never thought that one will happen. There's other big upsets like St. Andrews losing to Shirley. That one was a big upset. Christchurch boys losing to St. Thomas, which is not like far-fetched, and I talked about this before, but St. Thomas needed, with this long run that they have, they had Christchurch boys, then they had, I think it was Rangiora next week, and then after that they have like a run-through of like Stack, Christ's, St. Bede's, and Timaru. Not in that order, but those are the other teams. Nelson and Timaru. But then there's the other thing is that like they can still make it there. They can still make it into that top 4, and beating out Christchurch is a big show. But then Stack being one of the other teams as well. Oh no, did they play Stack already? Yeah, it's not Stack, it's Nelson. But Stack is losing to Shirley is not a good look at all, and it's really going to hit them as well. I know Torian's been out. I don't know, what's happening there, but losing that game, I think they should have never lost that game. I went to Sacred Heart, and it really was, Sacred Heart was not a good game to watch. It was so slow, so much stop and start, heaps of talking and resetting of scrums. There just became no flow, and the ref was really, really slowing this game down. Was pretty inconsistent in terms of the calls that he made and the way in which he made them, being really lenient and missing clear knock-ons and stuff like that. And it's not just his fault; it's also the fault of the touchies as well. They just weren't calling it, And to me, it kind of wrecked the game. Like I wanted to see them more, just more free-flowing and running with the football. PJ played a massive game for Sacred Heart. Who was the other ones? I think Nathaniel Puller, he played really good. Kobe K didn't get that much ball. He didn't get that much opportunities. What's his name? Adam Tamati, had a lot of good ball, had a lot of good hit-ups. But yeah, Tamiano was probably be a really good prop playing in Taihead Alu, the year 11 kid. Moses Hafuka, the captain, had a solid game. He was alright. I really like De La Salle though, like De La Salle's side. I don't know what they were doing, but they did switch it up. Like there must have been 4 or 5 starters that were on the bench, and then they brought them on in the second half. Where I don't know if that was a game plan to see if they could absorb a lot in that first half with the reserves, and then put on the starters and make this this effect. But it just didn't really work out that way. In Casanova, Pepine was on the bench, and I kind of think that I don't think he's like I don't think he's a lock anymore, right? Like I kind of think he's looking like a blindside, and they have tall locks anyway. They had Sean Farfili and Murray Church, and it locks, and then that Hawkins, I think Hawkins is his last name. He's the other lock, and he was injured. But if they have 3 locks that are capable of taking that, and then if you put it, I would play Casanova at blindside. I think that he'll be great there, and I think if you put him with Valentino Taito, or have Eddie Aramia at the back, or Lima Enosa, or Lilia Halafihi, like any of those guys, but that rotation's got to be different, and I kind of think Casanova moving his 6 would give them, height, size, and height, size, and a big running game from a blindside who you could put out there on the edge, match him up with a centre, and just flipping, give him that ball every single time. Let him just run through all those tackles, and but the first 5 I really, really liked for De La Salle. Sami Pini Otukolu was the first 5, and then he switched to fullback in the second half. But he was sharp. Just everything he did was just so good, and I was so impressed with the way that he played too. Dimitrix Vaimanga, I think his last name is. He was the one that the captain, of course, and he's just grown a lot in the past. In the past year, he's just grown so much as a player. Really big, great decision making. Really skillful kicking game, and he's a really good judgment of flow and tempo. And he knows how to mix it up, which I thought was like something that a lot of players don't do. Him and Francis from King's College kind of played the same way, and so similar build, and so just the way that he handled that game, I thought he played great. Oh, excuse me, I'm tired. But the other game I wish they would have showed the Southland boys and Otago boys. I think that's one of those bigger games that I think the country would be just interested to see what those guys are like, because we see a lot of Auckland games anyway, and and to be honest, outside of those 2 schools of King's College and Auckland Realm, I don't know how many people actually really care about it. I personally would love to see Hamilton boys, Rotorua boys, that matchup more. I'd love to see Town and Silverstream match up more. I would see Nelson and Marlborough. I think that is a better game. I mean, especially this year when, they won right in the last seconds. Christ and Christchurch, that game that those kids did on TV and the whole production from Christchurch boys, that was a really cool game. Good high scoring game. Exciting from start to finish. And Southland boys would be another one that I would want to see against Otago boys yearly. I think that's always a really good matchup and battle between those 2 schools. But with Otago winning, sort of setting themselves up as sort of the premiers, the premier champions is there, but King's High School had a massive 103-3 game over Mount Aspiring, which is huge. And Mount Aspiring is they're not a bad side. They've got a bunch of year 12s, something like 9 or 10 year 12s in that team. So a lot of them are going to be back, and obviously a lot of them are going to have to learn from this experience, especially of getting a hiding like that of 100 points. But, that was just a bad game where they turned up with their worst game and Kings turned up with their best game. And it just happened to be on the same day. But Mount Aspiring is not like that at all. They're such a better team than that. And but yeah, that was just one of those big surprising ones, eh? What was the other ones that I really liked? That North Harbour comp is just all over the place. No consistency. They're consistent with no consistency. But Westlake beating Rotorua 42-0 on such a just so lopsided in that game. When you look at the other scores from the other games, it's just not like that at all. But then you got Takapuna and Rosemary, them drawing in their game, and then Massey beating Whangarei Boys 22-15 is it's cool. It's kind of cool that they don't have a dominant one, which is usually Westlake Boys, but at the same time, it's frustrating with these when there is no kind of consistency in it. I don't know. It's just the way that worked out. I went and saw Mount Ruskell and Southern Cross. Who did I see? I discovered a new boy for First 15 Rugby, Year 11, centre, what's his name? Selu Halasima from Southern Cross. He's a freaking monster at centre, and he was just well balanced in everything that he did. And so, I kind of thought he was he kind of looks like maybe a year 12 a young year 13 or something. And the boys on the sideline told me I was really surprised, actually, really surprised. And I'm keen to watch him again. He's signed up with the Warriors. He's a league player, of course, coming from Southern Cross. But there was this kid Maya who obviously I just heard his first name from the game, but the open side for Mount Ruskell was really good that day. I don't have their roster, but the number 7 was the one that I liked. I liked the 7, 6, and 8. I liked the 2 and 3. 13 had a pretty good game as well. And 15 was okay. I kind of liked this game too. But the 12 and 13 for Southern Cross is what I liked. And really is, and it's always going to be the same, right? Southern Cross is never coming with a rugby team. They're just league players playing rugby for the fitness, the high skill level and stuff like that. But they're always going to be beat out on different, aspects of the game in terms of rugby, because they don't know how to make decisions properly. They don't really know what scenarios mean and what getting penalties mean. They didn't know what a short arm penalty was and a long arm penalty was. So obviously they just thought, we'll kick it out, get the line out, and then they missed out on their line out. Things like that. They were getting a penalty in the middle of the field instead of kicking for the line or going for goal. They set up a scrum, which is no one ever does that. Sitting on your 50-meter line in the middle of the field, no one says, you want to get a scrum, you either kick for the line. The other thing is that, and I wanted to talk to them after, is that, if they don't know what's happening or they don't know what the options are, just ask the ref, what are my options here? And he'll just let you know of the rules. So if anyone from Southern Cross is listening to this, just use that all the time. Ask whenever you guys get a penalty, say, what are my options for that? And then, just hope that he's not a dick and he just gives you some answers without being a smart mouth. Lindisfarne and St. John's. So St. John's winning this game against Lindisfarne, who's such a good team this year as well, is that it comes into my thought process now and comes into a conversation of do I put St. John's Hamilton up into the top 25 now? How far do I move them up there? If Christchurch Boys has to fall out, or if Stack have to now fall out, losing to Shirley after losing a couple games already, you know, like, is that how far do they fall out of this, you know? And Lindisfarne has been such a good team this whole year. The bad game that St. John's had was the one against Francis Douglas against Whanganui Collegiate, and they just got smoked when they shouldn't have. You know, just a really bad game. And so I think that would be one that they really wanted back, but, you know, it's just one of those things. But, I mean, we got to start, maybe I got to start thinking about putting St. John's in that top 25, or even, you know, even exercise the notion that do I find a reason why they should be there? Do I look at, like, more reasons of why I should justify putting them in that position to be a top 25 team, and then who falls out? Because Whanganui is not falling out; they got to be moving up. Especially if teams like Christchurch and that are gonna drop back. You know, so it's like they'll probably be the other key ones that you would want to look at to put them up. Porirua cancelled their game. You know, St. Pat's Town won by default. That St. Bernard's versus Wellington College was a good game. Shouldn't have been close, you know, like, I guess this is the inconsistency of what Wellington Rugby is about. After a massive win against Silverstream, you know, they struggled against someone like St. Bernard's, who I think that they should sort of run over a team like that, you know. Minor College losing to Hibs was not what I expected either. In a really solid game, like, I just didn't think that was going to happen. And so, all of everybody else's games look like they're sort of in the same, I guess. Oh no, Waitaki Boys winning 36-10 over Otago Boys. Second 15 is a big game and a big show that Waitaki is pretty much starting to put stuff together. After a rocky start to the season, they're starting to put it together, and that's with the experience that they have on their team, and with the experience that they have brought back from last year. They should be a lot higher, and they should have a better win-loss record to what they have right now. But yeah, I'm not too sure how I'm going to do the rankings or how I'm going to place everyone yet. You'll see later on tonight, but it is going to be a hard one. It's probably going to be one of the hardest ones I've had to do in a while, because of how many, you know, it's just like, what do I do with King's College? What do I do with Stack? What do I do with Christchurch? How far does St. Kinnigan's fall? And does it automatically mean that losing to someone like Dilworth jumps up? You know, they got to jump up some spaces. You know, how much, I don't know. St. Thomas has got to be in a discussion do they make the top 25 rankings now that they've beaten Christchurch, or do I hold off another week to see how consistent they are in terms of fronting up with a hard game, an easy game, and then another hard game, and a hard game, just to see what they, you know, just to see how they react and what they get up to, because sometimes you can move up a team up to the top 25, and then the next week they just lose. They lose by bad margins. They lose by something that's not recognizable to them, because they're just not used to playing that bad. But I do have a lot to think about in terms of those, the scores over the weekend. I'm not sure how. I'm going to look at these, but you know, Kelston Boys are still number 1. Hamilton still remain number 2. Rotorua Boys St. Peter's will be number 3. Rotorua should stay number 4. Number 5 is, I'm guessing, Hastings. Do I push Kings back 3 or 4? Do Kings go to 8? Do Kings go to 8? and then be just in front of St. Bede's at 9. Do I push St. Bede's back? Do I push Napier back, New Plymouth back? Napier definitely jumps up, but how far? Because like it's not a winner, it's not a loss, but does that mean that it's stagnant? Do I leave them all? Mags, how much does Mags jump up now? I mean, that should be probably the other discussion too, is how much Mags, after how much, how much losses they had in the preseason and how they struggled to really topping over some big dogs like Sacred Heart, Losing the Kelston by that much was fine, those kind of things are all good, but they seem to be turning it around, and so there's going to be some interesting movements within that top 25, and because even Christ had a really good game, Christ College. Scots College had a good game against Aotea. Just a fun game to watch, I thought. 59-0. But, we'll see how this goes. I'll try and get it out as quick as possible and fast and early as possible so everyone can see the rankings, and then I'll post up the rankings, and I'll post up sort of the games for week 9 and then see how all that works out. But it's going to be I hope I don't surprise anyone that much with how they fall or how much they jump up. But yeah, that's the podcast. Thanks everyone for tuning into this Monday morning meeting. I'm Herschel Fruin. Peace.